عروس النور يا ألقا تزين في روابينا نسوق إليك تهنئة.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Welcome back to SunnahNikah's podcast regarding how to help people with finding the new spouses, looking for spouses that are potential candidates or potential matches. Alhamdulillah, today is another podcast with a senior scholar from Newham, mashallah, has been serving in the Newham community for a very long time and has been working in this particular field of families, helping families, supporting families through courses and through counselling and many other ways, mashallah, through guidance, a combination of all areas. He's even, mashallah, going on a camp. He does family camps, mashallah, which is almost, there's time now, inshallah, in the holidays, he'll be going through some of these where the families go out and build bonds that unfortunately living in cities and living in busy environments where, you know, the climate of the world is so different now. Everyone's working, everyone's busy. And from that time, taking out time for family to build those connections that, you know, Islam encourages. That's what Islam wants. Islam wants that we flourish as a family, and the nuclear family is a family that sticks together and grows together. And so, alhamdulillah, senior Mufti in Newham, mashallah, one of the founders of Newham Ulama Forum, where, you know, the ulama of Newham are discussing up and coming problems and difficulties and finding solutions, mashallah. He is one of the founders, alhamdulillah. We are honored to have Hazrat Mufti Zubair. Assalamu alaikum. Mufti Sahab, how are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Absolute
Gave
honor.
me too big an introduction.
Not at all, not at all. I've fallen short. Actually, I haven't even listed the places that you're teaching, mashallah. Mashallah. Allah accept, inshallah, Allah bless. This is, so Mufti Sahab, I mean, you're not new to this scene. This is kind of your cup of tea, where, you know, families or young children growing up now, looking to get married, the dilemmas that they go through. This is exactly where we are with SunnahNikah. And alhamdulillah, we've had on multiple occasions crossed paths where you're training and SunnahNikah delivering those trainings to our users. SunnahNikah is obviously a platform where we try to arrange a Sharia compliant environment where young people can find their spouses in the Sharia most suitable, most closest to the Sunnah as possible, where there's a guardian involved, there's no, you know, chit-chatting outside of the parameters of deen. And alhamdulillah, we have been somewhat successful, but there are challenges, and those are the challenges we're trying to address through these podcasts, where you know, simply put, now, because it's like you know, you've got filter system where you can kind of almost narrow it down to the one that you want. You know, it's like everyone's used to eBay and Amazon, where you have those filters on the side and you can just, you know, actually filter it down to the teeth, exactly what you want, and it filters it out from hundreds and thousands of products. But today the problem is, you know, when it comes to human, they're not products. You know, you can't make them as you want. And so that's where the problem is, Mufti Sahab. What would your advice be to people who are looking right now and they're very, you know, picky in that area? Height has to be this much, and looks has to be like this, has to be perfect. I mean, you know, yes, Islam does allow that there has to be a level of attraction, but, you know, nitpicking, you know, height is something that you can't change, skin color and, you know, weight and all these kind of things are areas that you can't really change. You know, sometimes we have two levels of services. One of them is where we kind of offer them to find them what they want. And so in the criteria, they will put, you know, the height has to be this much, otherwise it's a no. And everything else fits. It's just that area, and it's like it's a breaker for them, deal breaker.
Yeah, no, most certainly you're right. I mean, there's a lot of people who have, I would say, unrealistic expectations. Yeah. Where they think that I've got a certain picture in my head as to who I want to marry, and they don't have any compromise, no sort of compromising at all in that. if you approach the marriage scene this way, either two things will happen. Either you'll never get married, right? Or otherwise, you will pass your peak, right?
Yeah.
And then you will have to definitely compromise.
Yeah.
So you'll end up getting married to someone who you possibly could have had a better opportunity had you compromised a few years or maybe a little bit earlier. So this is the point, that you're going to either compromise afterwards when you realize and you've done it all wrong, or either you end up not marrying. So this is when people approach it with this kind of unrealistic approach.
When they're
like you're
young,
saying.
when they've got the best of everything.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I would say, yeah, have your criteria. No one's saying don't have criteria, right? Have your criteria, but be a bit flexible, that it's fine if this is not met. So what I would generally tell people realistically to do, let's say you've got your criteria, whatever it is. Let's say they need to be a certain level of education, Islamic education, a certain level of practice, a certain character, a certain personality. So you put all of this down, your criteria, and then you have 1 to 10, for example. This is my number 1 priority. This is my number 2 priority. This is my number 3 priority. So your height now, you're saying, for example, or your skin complexion, or whatever else that people may have as a criteria, have that, let's say that's my number 5 or 6 priority. So if your number 5 or 6 is not met, but your first 4, 3, 5 are met, then you should look forward and see that actually I could compromise on that one. It's fine.
So that's good that you put it up in number system. What is there anything that should be in the first 1 to 3? What should be in a person's criteria if they're making a list of priorities? What should be a 1 or 2, or is it different for everyone?
No, so my advice is always that number 1 should be mindset.
Okay.
Mindset, mentality, that should match.
Okay.
Meaning it's not going to be a perfect match, but there should be compatibility in the two mindsets that are marrying. If you have, for instance, just give you an understanding, if you have a mindset of somebody who is very traditional mindset, and then you've got versus a person who's very modernist mindset. Now they're going to have fireworks every day, arguments about everything, you name it. Why? Because this person is very traditional, wants everything done in a certain way. And the other person is very modern, is like you're old fashioned, right? You're still in the Stone Age, right? You're living in the past. You should go to the cave. And this person's like, you're just a modern freak, right? You're just like, you're just giving up everything. You're a sellout. You have no culture left. You have no tradition left. All sorts of things. So you see, it's going to be fireworks every day because their mindset just doesn't match. So it's important to recognize who you are first and find somebody who will match you. That's the first thing that I would normally tell people. That's the number 1 thing people should look at. Obviously, keeping mindset, in that mindset would be your approach to deen, right? Your approach to how practice of deen is. If your approach to deen may be quite strict, then you need to find somebody who you'll be able to be compatible with. No point in finding somebody who is completely relaxed about the way they practice their deen, but everything else matches, because then it's going to be very difficult for both of you to make it work.
Yeah.
Or any other thing. So obviously, that's what I'm talking about, your ideology, mindset, mentality towards, for example, your deen. For example, let's say your next criteria might be, for example, character or personality, or maybe the way they look, right? So you have to work out what it is that you want. But I would say, firstly, compatibility in mindset is the most important thing.
Okay. Where would you put salary in the list, that 1 to 10? Where would you put salary as a priority?
So that all boils down to, again, mindset. So if you're looking at from a perspective of a woman marrying a man who you expect that he's going to be earning, and he's the one who's going to be the breadwinner. So he's going to be the provider. So if you're coming from that kind of mindset, so you're looking at a bit more traditional mindset now, isn't it? So there you're looking at what kind of, where would salary feature for me, because my expenses, for example, are like this. I like to go out, I like to spend, I like to go on holiday, I like to have a nice house and whatever else. So then you work out for yourself that, okay, actually salary might be a bit higher for me. But if, for example, you're like a very simplistic person, you don't really want too much of dunya, you can say, you're not really into all of that. If you have it, you have it, that kind of thing. Then you're looking at salary being further down the list, for example, for you, right? Likewise, if you approach it from a man's perspective, if you're looking at a wife who perhaps will contribute with you, right? Because a lot of people do have that ideology nowadays, that I want a partner who will actually contribute with me financially, because I can't fulfill the financial burden nowadays. So then it depends on, for yourself as well, that where you're looking at somebody, because many a times, and I have dealt with cases like this, many a times men do get married to a woman who is, for example, has got a degree in something, and she's even working as a optometrist or pharmacist or something, and he expects her to continue to work. But in her mindset is that when I have my first child, after that, I'm going to leave work. That's in their minds. They haven't actually exposed that to each other. Then when this actually happens, it's like all hell breaks loose. Why? Because he's expecting her to carry on working. And he's like, but she's like, why would I carry on working? Because it's not my duty to do that anyway. I'm going to spend my time with our child. So you see, there's conflict there now. Why? Because the point is that you didn't make things clear. So it's important that if salary is featuring quite high up, like just to answer your question, if salary is featuring quite high up for somebody, then it's important to understand their future plans in that.
So these are discussions that will be happening in prior to marriage.
Definitely.
Clarity is very important. So this is something I think you do very good with this, is where because obviously you can't ask directly. You can't really openly ask someone, how much are you earning and things like that. So how do you go about asking? And obviously from the man's side as well, they want to know that if I'm earning a lot, like if I'm a doctor or a pharmacist or whatever, a good businessman and I've got a good amount of money, how do I identify that the person I'm talking to is solely interested in my money? Or for the girl side, so they don't want to, fall into a marriage where the husband's only earning a mediocre, salary. How do they go about asking it in a polite way and taking that answer out?
Yeah. So you have to think. Whenever you want to find out something, right? You have to rack your brain a little and devise not necessarily a direct question, but more in conversation, which seems like an innocent, normal question that you're not trying to dig something out of.
Yeah.
So, for example, whilst conversation is flowing in an interview, right? Just ask a question, for instance, if you want to find out regarding their approach towards finances, right? So one question would have been, for example, what is your understanding of the role of a husband? Or what is your understanding of the role of a wife? So if they're saying, for instance, that I think that the husband is the provider and all of that, right? So if that matches you, then you understand that that's base, you got a base there, for example, because that's what you're looking for. If you're thinking, if they're saying to you that I think nowadays husband and wife both should contribute financially because of the the strain that there is nowadays, the high maintenance and financial strain that families have nowadays, and so on, then you need to see that actually, I don't mind that, or you have to see that actually, no, I'm not on that. Right? So you see, that's your foundation. Then beyond that, you start asking further. So you see, it's a conversation. So you'd ask, so what kind of brands do you like? What kind of brands do you like? What's your favorite brand? Something along them lines. You see, so if you're telling you I love LV or Gucci or whatever, that's the brands I like to. And should you like wearing that kind of thing as well? Like, is that the things that you kind of wear? Yeah, I try to that's the kind of things I would try to spend my money on. Then if
earning something.
Yeah, which way you're heading. Does that make sense? Otherwise, and the other questions, like for example, what kind of so when you go shopping, what kind of shops do you shop at, or which supermarkets do you shop at? All right. If they're telling you, for example, Aldi, Lidl, they're the best, right? There's nothing better than them. Everything's the same. All these other top ones, they just hike the prices. And trust me, this is the one, right? So what kind of mentality you're dealing with now. Does that make sense? But you have to build it into conversation, making it seem as though you're just talking, right? Just getting to know, because you are doing that, right? It's not fake. You're actually trying to get to know the person. But if you ask them, okay, so what kind of salary do you earn? That's very abrupt questions. It's like, oh, hold on a minute.
Like a red flag for a
right? Do I want to tell you that? Right? Does that make sense? Like, it's like, okay, how much savings do you have? Like, some people actually ask these kind of questions. That's why I'm saying, how much savings do you have? Because I need to know whether you have savings. That's what they want to know. But that's not the way to ask a question.
Exactly. And this is a problem, because I don't know what it is. Maybe social etiquettes lack in certain areas, or it's just that they're not aware, because, like nowadays, the children that have grown up now, they've grown up a lot secluded and not interacting generally. And so they're very abrupt, not meaning to be rude or not meaning to be abrupt, but there's no other way. They just want the answer. And so they're asking the question very directly, which sounds offensive and rude, but not necessarily that they're intending to be rude and disrespectful.
So the way to actually see, I mean, obviously you're right that 100% a person is like that. Now they're thinking, what do I do though? What's the solution? How do I get around this? How do I not put the other person off? So you have to stop looking at your question as though from your perspective. Why this happens is that a person will ask a question because they feel as though, I want to know though. I want to know. So why can I ask that question? So you're thinking completely from your perspective. So you have to think, you have to come out of your skin and think, if somebody asked you this question, how would you feel? So you have to put yourself in the other person's shoes. And if you do that, that's when you will start to realize that actually that might not be a suitable question to ask in this way. So then it sometimes does take literally, you want to ask that question, but it takes literally 2 days, 3 days, sometimes a week, just to like play with that question slightly and work out, oh, I've got it now. It'll take like 4 days, 5 days. And like now it dawns to you that that's the way to ask that question. I've got it. But you'll eventually get to that stage, inshallah.
So that's one area. So this is like CV selection and prioritizing. When it comes to discussions, what is like, now we have, before traditionally, and even now some families are still there, where the first meeting happens at home, the groom's side come and they see the bride and everything. But that, I think, slowly, even traditional families are slowly moving out of that, because it's a lot of expense, and sometimes they've had the first rejection, second rejection. It's just like, okay, if it's just going to be a rejection, we might as well do it somewhere where it's efficient. It's an expensive climate that we're living in. What is the halal parameters of meeting another person?
So, what I would generally say to people, you get a CV first, right? Generally, most people will have like a profile. If it's looking promising, try to find out whether this person works somewhere. A lot of the times you'll find that this person part-time working in some retail, outlet somewhere. Go and see them, whether it's male or female. If there's an opportunity, right, go and check them. See why? Because it saves all the other hassle that happens after that. I can't tell you the amount of boys, because obviously generally I deal with males, right? But there are boys that have come to me and said that I went to Shirishta this week, but as soon as I went into the room, I already knew the answer. I know why he's saying it, right? It's obviously he wasn't attracted towards her, right? For whatever reason. So the point is that, well, had you done that, like maybe it would have saved, firstly, your family the hassle, all of that, all of those gifts and everything else that they get ready, all the mitai and whatever else, right? All the expenses, dressing up, taking that time out. And then more importantly, we're not seeing is that this girl has been rejected now by somebody. Maybe you're the 10th person that has rejected her. Can you imagine what it's creating in her mentally? So it's very important, I think, that we safeguard each other, and our children as well. Give them this understanding that, look, we found out, for example, he works in this particular shop or she works in Boots or something, right? Just go and just pay a visit, right? See, yeah, actually this looks potential for me, or this, nah, you know what, I'd rather say no to this right now. So like that. Otherwise, if there's not that opportunity, then some sort of either picture or video call. Nowadays you can get a one-time picture sent. If a person feels insecure that there's somebody, I don't want to send my picture to somebody, I mean, yeah, I understand that sometimes pictures don't do justice, but at least it gives some impression, gives some guidance towards that. So use the technology available nowadays, and inshallah through those means, I would say try to do that first, right? Then if it comes to a stage where they want to further that then yeah, meet up, right? Without any seclusion, obviously. That's the most important thing. That must be the case, that there's no seclusion. Likewise, females obviously need to make sure that their aura is fully covered, so that only face and hands are exposed. And in terms of males, making sure obvious that the aura is covered, that I guess that would be the case, but going appropriately dressed. And at least the female should take somebody that is, and a male generally, somebody who is part of the family, that ideally a wali, that is at least able to sit on another table, if not the same table. If you're talking about a public, like a coffee shop or something, right? I guess that's what you're alluding to. That at least that much should be done. A lot of families still like to keep it very traditional, that no, we're still going to meet at home, which is perfectly fine. But then again, these same things should be adhered to. So I would really recommend for all of you to check out our course that we have. It's a on-demand course. There are two. One is Seeking Your Soulmate. So that would be for those who are still looking for their partner, how to look for your partner, what questions to ask, where to look, how to develop your questions. Everything is covered, mashallah. It's a seekingyoursoulmate.com. Very easy address. Go to that and you will find this this course on demand, like I said, available. It's the course is pay what you want. So if you can't afford, then no problem. If you feel benefit after you've done the course, then contribute towards the charity, so we can continue to do this kind of beneficial work for to continue the work for the charity, inshallah. Then there is another course, which is the marriage crash course. So we go to marriagecrashcourse.com, and that is when you now have found your partner, inshallah, you will then be equipped with the skills that you need to have a happy marriage. So there's two courses. First is the how to look, what kind of questions to ask, preparing before marriage. And the second one is the skills that you would require in order to have the happy marriage. So finding compatible person for you to be able to have this happy marriage with, and then you having the skills will, inshallah, these two will come together as the key ingredients towards having a happy married life. So this is something I would really recommend all the viewers to do, inshallah.
So like you said, there are families that do this. They like to have it traditional. How Islamic is that? Like, does Islam enforce that, or is just tradition?
Right. So in terms of obviously talking from Islamic perspective, right? So there is varying opinions now amongst the scholars. A lot of scholars actually of the opinion, when you look at the hadith, because the allowance of looking at somebody as a potential is only because of where Prophet ﷺ, he encouraged the Sahaba radiallahu anhum to look before right? So they say that, but that is just encouragement to look, isn't it? So just go look. Where is there any encouragement in any hadith of sitting down and having a 1 hour conversation? There's nothing there. So then where do you justify that from? So you got a camp of scholars that are on this opinion, and if you look at it from a evidence perspective, from Shari'i evidence perspective, you think that, oh, actually, they've got a very strong stance, very strong point, that there is nothing allowing a potential boy and a girl to sit there privately talking to each other like that, right? Yeah. So there is that side of it. And then obviously in an hour, how much are you going to find out, right, about the person? You can ask questions, no doubt. I'm not saying to go down that route, but I'm just saying there are scholars that have that opinion. We have to respect that there are people of that opinion. Yeah. Generally speaking, we see that scholars do allow without any seclusion. It's very important.
There should be a third person there.
There should be somebody there, or at least the door should be left open and things like this, right? Whereby they can have a conversation. There should be certain, rules being made. There should never be an exchanging of any sort of personal details, meaning emails or phone numbers or any, Instagram, addresses, whatever it is, this is this, my tag is this, whatever else. So nothing being exchanged in a way whereby they can now become affiliated with one another. Because what happens, people don't realize, I think a lot of young people don't realize that you're setting yourself up for failure. Why? Because when you meet somebody, I mean, young person, when you meet some, the opposite gender, you like them a bit, right? You're a bit attracted towards them. They actually look a bit attractive towards you. You will feel a little bit like, oh, yeah, actually, this looks a bit promising. So what happens is your hormones are all over the place, right? You're thinking this, you're thinking that. And when you can easily tag them or, follow them on your Instagram or whatever else you're doing, you're now going to become affiliated with the person. Slowly. The more you message each other, the more you talk to each other, the more affiliation will grow. When that affiliation grows, you haven't even said yes to each other, right? So this person actually may not have been good for you, right? Because you can see you don't meet your criteria. You've drawn up all your criteria as we talked about. This person doesn't meet your criteria. But because you've built a bond with them now, you kind of have fallen in love with them a little bit, right? So what happens now? Saying no to this person is going to be very difficult because you're going to have a fight between your mind and your heart. Your heart is saying, I want to continue. But your mind, if you do listen to your mind at that time, is telling you this person's not really good for you, right? This person doesn't meet, but it's fine. You're going to fight. It's fine. I'll change them after. It's fine. I'll influence them later. It's fine. They will change. They're saying they're going to try to change for me. No problem. All of those kind of things. And what happens? You're setting yourself up for failure. You get married, and that's when the curtain drops as such. And that's when you start digging out the reality and you feel deceived. You feel as though you were sold a lie. Right? They made out like something else. They told you that they will do this X, Y, and Z, and they're not doing it. And you feel aggrieved. So this happens. Why? Because that affiliation is created. So my main point is what? My main point is that understand when Allah is telling us something, don't do this. He's not doing it because He wants to be strict on us. He's doing it because He knows this is not good for you. This will lead you to the path of harming yourself. So you're not going to understand that. So Allah says, you know what? We're going to make this haram. Why? Because you're not going to understand the harms of it. We make it haram for you, you don't do it. Don't cause harm to yourself. Allah loves us too much for us to leave us to our own devices like this without any guidance, for us to be able to then harm ourselves and then, end up in... Exactly. Yeah. So this is, we have to realize that Allah, think about it, right? What does Allah gain in putting these kind of restrictions on us? Absolutely nothing. So then why would He be doing it is the question.
So what you're saying is the general majority of ulama are of the opinion that you can have a discussion.
Yeah, you can have a discussion, like I said, with the the guidance that is given by the scholars. Like I said, some scholars will say that there should be a third person in the room. Some will allow that if, for example, there is a like some people have a glass partition wall, like a sliding door, and then you're sitting on one side and the parents might be sitting on the other side, so they can see you but they can't hear any conversation perhaps or something, right? Something along these lines. Okay. So they will say that there should be definitely, I don't see scholars that allowing a door closed and you're sitting privately in a bedroom and that's only two of you and then you're discussing. This would be, majority of the scholars would definitely not allow something along them lines.
So you said 1 hour discussion. This is obviously... what is a balanced time duration that a person should talk to their potential spouse?
Now, look, obviously, no one can tell me that even if you speak for 1 hour,
that you
even if you spoke for 10 hours. And a lot of people nowadays, especially young people nowadays, they say that, but how can I marry somebody that I don't even know?
Yeah.
Yes? The simple thing is, let's say, okay, no problem. Let's work with you, yeah? You're telling me you don't know them. So how long would you need to know them? Okay? That's why I asked, how long would you know them? Maybe a year. Okay, I can guarantee you, even after a year, you still won't know them. And I can tell most people who are married, you're married, I'm married, right? You still discover things about your partner, especially like, let's say you haven't been abroad, right? First time you go abroad after a certain amount of time with your partner, you now discover how they react to a certain environment, how they react to certain different types of food. You're discovering that, oh, you don't like that. I didn't know that. You're discovering that after 5 years, 6 years. I didn't know you didn't like that. Or you don't like to explore new things. Or you don't like a heavy schedule. You don't like excursions. You like to relax on holiday. examples. So the point is, after children,
Yeah.
people will change. Like, how do you react to children? You will discover new things regarding your partner every time while
You
you're
can
living
never
with
be
them.
prepared, basically.
That's it. So the point is that don't think that I'm going to have a discussion, I'm going to find out everything I need to know. No. You have to have, like I said, your criteria, your 4 or 5 criteria that you have perhaps. From that, you've drawn questions, right? This is my question I'm going to ask them. This is my question I'm going to ask them. Those are the questions, your core questions that you're asking them to see whether there is potential in this person. Not to say that this person is perfect for you. We don't know that. But there is potential to take this further.
Okay. What is perfection?
Perfection is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Perfection is how can we even think that we're going to get perfection on this world, right? If you're thinking of perfection in this world, then, like I said, you're going to be single for the rest of your life. If you're looking for a perfect partner, we ourselves aren't perfect, right? When we look in the mirror ourselves, we realize that I'm not perfect myself. So then, how can I demand somebody to be perfect? Human beings, we have faults. We live with each other. We have siblings, we have parents, we have friends. Nobody's perfect, right? Everyone has flaws. So we live with each other, don't we? We still have friends. We don't say that, okay, I don't have a perfect friend, so I'm not going to have any friends. Like, no one does that, right? My siblings are not perfect, so I'm not going to have any relationship with them. People, you don't do that, right? You get on with it, right? In exactly the same way here, you try your best to find a partner who's going to meet, like I said, majority of your criteria, and you're going to have to compromise on the rest of them. And then you marry that partner and you make the best of your life.
So now, Islamically, we see that, or this is a general understanding, is that financial burden of the family, the man should carry it, right? But you've already talked about now the roles are changing, the climate is difficult, it's very expensive, and so we see that almost culture is saying that no, women need to get involved, and mashallah, a lot of women are coming into the workforce and working and participating. Now, there's a slight caveat here, is where some women are working, but they still want the luxury of the husband paying for everything. She should not have to carry the burden of paying for anything, because Islam puts the burden of finance on the husband. What's yours? How do you go about that?
Yeah. So what's important here, just the point that I kind of forgotten, that somebody, whilst you asked the other questions regarding finance as well, that a student actually asked me just a little while ago that what if my wife is earning more than me? So he's obviously a male. He's saying, what if my wife is earning more than me? I said, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
As per se. So what if she's earning more than you? They're partners, we understand that. But from in certain instances, we have that the male takes lead in certain matters. And that is kind of concepts. So we have to understand basics, that in certain matters, the man will take lead, right? That's the simple basics. And that's not something traditional. But the point I'm making, it doesn't make the woman any lower, or doesn't make the woman, it's the comparison which is wrong, that a woman is being compared to a man here, right? Women are different to men. Men are different to women. We don't compare in a way whereby, okay, who's higher and who's lower. It's like comparing apples and pears. You don't compare two different genders like that. The roles are completely different. A mother, for instance, would be arguably, through many ahadith, the mother would have a higher role than a father, for instance. So that makes the woman superior now. Is that what we're saying? No, the point is, in motherhood, the woman has a certain role to fulfill. In exactly the same way, what you're talking about here is that the husband has a certain role to fulfill as a husband, right? He's got a certain role to fulfill, which is obviously, from a Sharia perspective, Sharia has made him, to fulfill the role of finance. That's what he has to do. Now, obviously, a woman, if she is doing her part of the family, she's doing her part, right? And she doesn't demand from the husband that you should help me in these tasks that I have to do, or these roles that I have to fulfill. I demand you to help me. If she doesn't do that, then it's understandable that the husband shouldn't demand financially that you need to help me too. But if the husband is, for instance, demanding that you need to help me financially because I can't do this on my own, and the wife sees that is true, he can't do it on his own, let me give a hand, then that does mean that the husband should also understand, let me give her a hand in some of the things that maybe she needs to do. Does that make sense? There needs to be a balance. There needs to be a balance drawn in the amount of help that is sought from the woman, because at the end of the day, she can't be Superwoman and do everything, right? And nor can he be Superman and do everything. There needs to be a partnership. There needs to be mutual understanding. It's not a fight. This is not a game where we're seeing, okay, did you fulfill your role? Did I fulfill? It's not a game. It's partnership. It's your life at the end of the day. You have to learn to mutually get along and understand that, okay, at this moment we're struggling with this. Let's help out here. Husband needs to do the same. You can't have it all. Like you're saying, some women, they say that I'm going to keep all my money. So they say this as well. They say that my money is mine and your money is ours, right? Or your money is mine too, which some people unfortunately say. So this is something we don't want to go into.
That is an issue, but what makes it worse is that they say this is what Islam entitles them to. And so just to clear the air there. The other thing is, you already said, so there is a clear defined role given to women and men. Like if the men are the breadwinners, the women are expected to contribute. Like Rasulullah ﷺ said, mu'ina. Rasulullah used the word mu'inatun. Like she is your helper and your supporter. It's not, that your duties is this and my duties is this. It's helping each other both ways. The help comes from both sides. Sometimes the husband needs help, sometimes the wife needs help.
So just like you said, what happens is both partners, obviously we're highlighting that sometimes a woman does this, whereby she uses Islam to justify certain things that she wants. So for instance, the woman will say that, the Prophet ﷺ used to help at home as well, so you should help too. Or Islam says you need to fulfill the financial burden because that's your duty. And then the man will do certain things as well. The man will utilize certain things in his favor. So what happens is we're using Islam when it suits us. That's something we can't do that, right? We have to understand that it's not that's why I was saying it's not a game. It's not something, a play. It's like you said, it's where we're mutually understanding and trying to live with one another. Finance, we have to see whether it's affordable to do this, to do that. If he can't and he's struggling, then there should be some sort of help being offered from this side that, okay, let's look for a part-time job. Okay, let's do something from home to top up the finance. Or let's cut the cost here perhaps. Something needs to happen whereby, okay, we're working together here, rather than it become a competition.
Yeah. Okay, Mufti Sahib, we'll come slowly to the end now. This is quick-fire questions. So you don't get to think too hard. MashaAllah, you haven't thought too hard about anything. This is obviously because you're in that field and you're expert in that area as well, MashaAllah. So quick-fire questions. Biggest unrealistic expectation that you've seen?
Biggest unrealistic expectation probably be the height one.
Height one, yeah. Height or character, which one matters more?
Character, definitely.
Character. One advice to singles being overly selective.
You have to learn to compromise. That's the main thing. Learn to compromise, otherwise you will harm yourself.
One advice to parents setting high standards.
Parents need to understand that sometimes their high standards means that their children don't end up marrying. I've got at least just as you say that, I'm listing people that I know, and I've already got to 6 people that I know now that have well into their 35, 36 years old now, and they're still not married. The simple reason is because of parents that set high standard, and that's it. Now they got to the age where they're now 32, 33, and the parent is thinking, I'm going to now pass away soon, and my child will not be married. So they're just telling the child, why don't you just marry this person? So the child replies to them saying, no, when I had way better rishtas than this coming, better proposal than this is coming, you rejected it. Now you're telling me to compromise? No, I'm going to wait for that perfect person that you told me I'm waiting for. So this is it.
Yeah, parental advice. Chalo, Jazakallah, Mufti Sahib. I hope that this session was beneficial, inshallah, in helping those who are looking to get married. SunnahNikah is the platform to find you your perfect partners, inshallah. well, perfection is only in the eye of the viewer. So with that, inshallah, we conclude here. We thank Mufti Saab for spending his time with us today, inshallah, and his wise words. Allah help us, Allah guide us, Allah give us happiness in this dunya. Those of you who are still single and miserable, inshallah, you find your happiness very soon. Assalamu alaikum.
روابينا نسوق إليك تهنئة